10 years in the joint made me a fucking gamer.
Who's gonna rock the place? Place, place. Who's gonna rock the place? Place, place. Who's gonna rock the place? Place, place. Who's gonna rock the place?
Now, I know what you guys may be saying. Oh, Rocky, didn't you already have a 10-year anniversary? Yeah, for the creation of the channel. However, this 10-year anniversary is for my first ever video I made, which was a review of Pac-Man. Now, I'm not going to be doing that again here because, I feel like a review of Pac-Man itself is probably not going to be enough to do for a 10-year anniversary special. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna play the most amount of Pac-Man games that I can. So we'll see where this goes. So wish me luck, guys. This is gonna be awesome because I love Pac-Man. And a matter of fact, why don't I get into that real quick before we start? As a little baby, Pac-Man was like the first real franchise I got into that I absolutely adored and I still love to this day. I mean, yeah, at the time when I was that little, I also liked the Wiggles as well, but let's be honest, that's like kind of a baby thing, you know? You can still like it as an adult, I won't judge, well, unless given a reason to.
I'm done with you forever. Goodbye forever. And off for what I count. That's what I want you to do. 100% channel. That's it. You're gonna for 555 weeks. Go to motherfucking room and stay on my channel.
But, like, that being said, when it comes to Pac-Man, I feel like, there's a lot more to see than what meets the eye, and I feel like there's plenty to talk about that I'm sure a lot of you didn't even know. So let's dive right in, shall we? However, before we start, I would just like to say something extremely important. Because of the shutdown of Vim's Lair and a lot of emulator sites not really giving me arcade machine ROMs, I'm gonna have to do this on an online emulator on like a website. I know a lot of you guys don't like that. Hell, there's even some of you guys that don't even like the idea of me using emulators at all. But the thing about it is that using an actual machine nonetheless like an emulator is probably going to be really hard. So the best thing I could do is play it on a website. I'm sorry if you guys don't like this. It's just that honestly, don't even get mad at me. Blame Nintendo, Sega, and a couple of other companies for shutting down Vim. Vim's Lair was a great website and it could have had the opportunity to be better. So fuck these companies for shutting down websites that cared about preservation. These companies aren't even going to re-release most of the games that were on there to begin with anyway. Well, regardless of, all that stuff, I know you guys want me to just start the review, so let's just start. First things first, let's talk about the original Pac-Man. Now, the thing about it is that with this game, it still holds up really well. There are some flaws that I'll get into, but first I want to talk about the good parts about this game. The fun factor, I say, is like the best, that there is that any old school arcade game has. Like, yeah, sure, there are a lot of other old school arcade games that came out around this time, but there's a reason why this one is still remembered for as long as it has been. It's because it's a genuinely fun game. Like, there's so many different ways to get points, whether it be through the little pellets, the power pellets, the ghosts, which give you the highest amount of points if you have a power pellet, and the food, right? This, I feel like, is just how you do, like, these types of point-based games correctly. Now, there are some flaws that I might want to add in when talking about it. Like, take for example, when you're in between a wall, but you get like slightly close to like an area where you can turn, it's not as responsive as I'd want it to be. Now, don't get me wrong, the game is still fun and playable, but it does kind of mess things up when you try to turn, but you don't. You know what I mean? Other than that, though, yeah, it's still pretty solid. And not only that, but this is one of the first ever games to have cutscenes, and arguably enough, one of the first ever games to have characters in it. So, yeah, with that being said, Despite this game being as old as it is, you could still play it for years to come. It's great. The common complaint that was brought up about this game is how it's not fast enough, and honestly, after replaying it, I don't really see that as a problem. However, admittedly, I do enjoy the faster version, which is what I'm gonna show you next. Alright, so when it comes to the sped up version of this game, I must admit, it is much more fun. However, I still really appreciate the original version. If I were to compare these two versions of the games to what we have in the modern day, I'd say that the original version is kind of like a stealth game where you're trying to carefully make your way around the ghosts so you don't die, which is kind of funny given that the original Metal Gear was inspired off of Pac-Man. However, with the sped up version, I'd say that it's more in line with, a typical hack and slash game, kind of like Dynasty Warriors where you're taking out multiple enemies at once. It's the speed that really does make the difference, and it is quite interesting to think about it that way. I know if you're not really thinking about it, you don't see it, but, think about it in the lens of how people would imagine these games back then. Because remember, with graphics like these, you could very easily use your imagination. I know these aren't like Atari level graphics, but really think about it in this perspective. For a game like Super Mario Brothers, for example, when you run into a Goomba, you shrink down or you die. And the reason why that is because Miyamoto intended for the Goomba to, bite Mario, which honestly that makes sense when you think about it that way. Here, I guess I could use my imagination here as well too for, stuff like that. But I don't know. Most people wouldn't like to think about it like that, even though they should. It's fun to use your imagination. But back on topic, now that we're bringing this up, what do I think about this? Well, like I said before, I think it's better than the original, even though I love both of them. With that being said, for a long time now, people have been saying that Miss Pac Man is better than the original. And while I have played the original way more, at the same time, I still want to give Miss Pac Man a chance. I've never really seen a difference between the two, but let's really think about it, shall we? If there's one thing I could say to describe this game, it would be more. It's harder, to say the least. It also has more levels, and, well, what the last game didn't do is that, well, the food moves now, I guess, but yeah, it's pretty cool. And with the cutscenes in this game, they try and incorporate a story in too about how Pac-Man and Miss Pac-Man met. So, yeah, I guess this is somewhat better, but at the same time, though, the original game holds a very soft spot in my heart. So, I don't know. Just because I'm biased, I'll have to say that both are equally good in my opinion. However, it might be a little hard for me to do that, mainly because of the fact that this game has a sped up version as well, and given how it has more stuff in it, and it also has a sped up version, well, let's just see how the sped up version compares. Okay, so you know how I said the sped up version of the original Pac-Man is better? Well, it applies here as well too. Yeah, this game just went from fun to addicting, and yeah, I will admit, I've played this like 6 times within the span of a day just because of how fun it is. I feel like it's gonna be hard for me to get out of that habit. Actually, maybe not, I don't know. But whatever the case may be, yeah, this version of the game is great. I would elaborate more on why this version of the game is great. However, it's pretty much for the same reasons why the original and the sped up version of the original Pac-Man is. So, yeah. So each game we played progressively got better. However, the thing about it is that that progress can't go on forever. What's proof of that, you may ask? Super Pac-Man. Okay, so the idea for this game is actually pretty interesting. Giving Pac-Man a super form? Yeah, that's pretty cool. By the way, Super Pac-Man can easily beat Super Sonic in a fight. Don't at me, bro. Actually, Sonic's gonna kill you in your fucking sleep. Yeah, sure, whatever. Not like I'm gonna do the same thing to him. But anyway, so, as I was saying, right? So with Super Pac-Man, the problem with this game is that, like, they tried to, like, fix what already wasn't broken to begin with. which is weird because with Miss Pac-Man, they managed to do that successfully. Here, I don't really think they actually seem to get the point. Like, the maze is too small now, the food is too few and far between. Same with you see, no, I just thought about it. While Miss Pac-Man was more, this game is less. And that's why it's not as good as the original, so yeah. Okay, now before I continue on and review the next game, I would just like to say that originally for the next one, I was going to do a different one. The next one I'm going to do is Junior Pac-Man. However, the one I was originally supposed to do was Professor Pac-Man. However, it's not working. And honestly, I think that might be for the better because, in all honesty, it looks kind of crappy. However, with Junior Pac-Man, that one's kind of an interesting case. Okay, so Junior Pac-Man is well known among the Pac-Man community as like the hardest Pac-Man game. And honestly, if you want my opinion on it, I'm kind of mixed on it. Like, I really don't know if it's like a good or bad game. Like, sometimes when I play it, I have fun, while other times I don't. So, I don't know. I'm just gonna leave it at, just kind of being like okay. But it's still better than Super Pac-Man in my opinion, since it has, at least some substance to it. Like, instead of having food, now you have a bike, so there you go. At least you have that. But yeah, all things considered, for its difficulty, it's just kind of, it exists. It's a game, I guess. And just like the original Pac-Man and Miss Pac-Man, this also has a sped up version. How does this fare? Well, yeah, I must say, this version is even better than the original Miss Pac-Man, I must say. Way better than the original game that this is sped up from. Like, holy moly. Like, if speed doesn't make a difference, then I don't know what does. Because, like, yeah, like, the original game, I suppose, was supposed to be, like, an improvement off of Miss Pac-Man, making the maze bigger and whatnot. However, it didn't really, get it across that well because of the fact that, well, it was just too big, right? However, with the sped up version, yeah, this is like a vast improvement. It is way better than the original. So, yeah, like you could definitely see what they were trying to do when speeding it up. Like this is what they were trying to do. I don't think that the difficulty was supposed to be as grueling as it was originally. You know what I mean? All right, now let's talk about Pack and Pal. Originally, I was actually going to say that this is the weakest one. However, the more I played it, the more it grew on me, which is more than what I could say in comparison to Super Pac-Man. So, yeah. The only downside is that this game doesn't have any power pellets. Like, I mean, yeah, you can turn blue, but what's that really going to do, huh? Nothing. Yeah, exactly. The benefit, though, is that you have Pal, who sometimes helps and sometimes is a nuisance, but it really depends on how you play the game. And the thing about it is that, like, yeah, like, it may be less, but it's not enough to be, the weakest of the ones of the games, I guess. So, yeah, this is pretty alright, you know? Like, all I can say is, yeah, it alright, and that's it. Okay, now we're moving on to the last 8-bit Pac-Man game, and that being Pac-Land. I feel like this might be a controversial statement or not, I don't know, but I feel like this is the best 80s arcade game that's 8-bit. And the reason why I say that is because, well, this feels like one of the better NES games that you play on console, except the difference is that this is in an arcade. And honestly, like that I feel like is very commendable for Namco when it comes to making this game because the thing about it is that when you think of arcade games, you don't think of stuff like this. This is what you'd imagine to be on the NES, but no, this is an arcade game, and that's why it's the best that it is. Like, here's the thing, it has different levels, it's a pretty complex platformer for its time, especially for an 8-bit arcade game. It still has everything you love about the previous Pac-Man games. Yeah, no, I'd say that this is a hit. So, yeah, and you know what? Out of all the games I reviewed so far, this one's probably the best one. Like, actually, for real. The fun factor is through the roof. And from the effort that I see that was put into this game in comparison to the other ones, yeah, no, this one's like the actual best. For the other ones, other than the original, I'd have to say that they're just modified versions of the original game. But this one was made from the ground up, and it's based on an obscure cartoon no one cared about. So, yeah, no, I'm gonna say it straight up. This is fantastic, and I love it. I would honestly play this game more often if I had the opportunity to. Well, I'm kind of upset that I didn't play this when I was a kid. Like, cause like the thing is that my introduction to Pac-Man was through plug-and-play consoles. And this packaged into them. Oh well, it doesn't even matter. This game is absolutely goated. I love it. It's the best that there is when it comes to 80s arcade games that are 8-bit. Alright, let's just do these last two and that's it. The reason why I'm doing it that way is because, well, the next ones after these two, I can't really sum up as quickly as I did the previous ones. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna talk about, these two games and finish the video. But first, before we talk about, the one that comes after this one, let's talk about, well, this one right now, I guess. Talk about Pac-Mania here. Wow, what a great 16-bit debut for Pac-Man. Like, holy shit, like, so basically, this is pretty much in the same line as the original. However, this time it has, like, pre-rendered graphics almost, similar to, like, Donkey Kong Country. And keep in mind, this game came out in 1987, predating this game by almost a decade. So, wow, that's incredible. And not only that, but another thing too is that they included a mechanic that really I feel like would have made the original more, convenient to play, and that being jumping. You could jump over ghosts, you could jump over power pellets to preserve them and come back to later. Like, yeah, like jumping I feel like is a mechanic that I feel like should have been in the original, but probably wasn't able to be put in due to technical limitations. But yeah, no, like, this is by far the ultimate Pac-Man game. And honestly, I feel like, looking back at this one, it's even better than Pac-Land. So yes, this is the best Pac-Man game out of all of them thus far. Alright, this is gonna be the last one before I end the video. We're gonna be talking about Pac-Attack. The difference between Pac-Attack and a lot of the other previous games is that it's like a puzzle game, kind of like a Tetris type Puyo Puyo type thing almost. And it does a really good job because, like, you see, well, okay, I was gonna say that, but, like, the more I think about it, the more I realize how, hard it actually is, which isn't a bad thing, don't get me wrong. However, I do personally believe that, its difficulty is even more so than Junior Pac-Man, which is notorious for being difficult. Which, again, I don't have a problem with it, but the way the game is designed, it kind of hinders it with, like, the blocks and the ghosts, and, kind of like that Tetris thing, like I said again, if you get, like, multiple in a row, it, like, lines things up, and, you have a -1 row, right? Which, is good, all things considered, especially when the fairy shows up to get rid of all the ghosts. However, the thing about it is that unlike a lot of these puzzle games, it just doesn't feel satisfying, and I really don't know why it feels that way to me, but it just does, I'm not much of a puzzle game psychology expert, but what I can say is that this is not gonna get me addicted in any way, shape, or form. Well, guys, that's the end of the video, and all I gotta say now is thank you to everyone supporting me in the past, for getting me up to over 600 subscribers, for, helping me be able to, like, sustain this for over 10 years. Like, I gotta say, it's really tough, especially due to a lot of the taxing things that I had to go through in life during my time maintaining this channel. Like, you guys gotta know, this wasn't an easy road. I had to learn a lot over the course of my time running this channel. I got into a lot of controversies and a lot of fights because of a lot of misinformation that's being spread online these days. And honestly, as hard as it is, it's worth it. It honestly is, because it feels super satisfying to finally make it past the 10-year mark. Like, I never really thought I would have made it to this point. I thought I would have been dead by then, which says a lot, because of how a lot of these psychopaths want to, like, actually have me killed. But you know what? The thing about it is that it feels rewarding. Really rewarding to actually make it here. And honestly, all I gotta say to everyone watching this, even the people who hate me, is here's to another 10 years.